Yeah, it's not like, oh, you're a bad person, but it's very ignorant at this point to still not be bare bones informed about how not to get this thing. Like,
Literally 3 things.
Yep.
And it's been the same 3 things for so long now.
Yeah. Yep. And I get mad because I hate, I'm not on team masks or no big deal. I actively hate masks because I have skin issues and it brings them out a lot. So I've had to spend time and money, extra time and money at dermatologists, and I still wear masks. So if I could do it, you could fucking do it. Like just wear the goddamn mask. But with all that said, first of all, I just want to say from here on out, wherever our relationship goes, if we end up not getting along and getting in fights and everything or not, the fact that we've been sending each other cute animal photos via email, I'll always keep that in my heart. I just want to let you know that.
It is
means a lot to me.
brilliant, and I am going to steal this. I am going to do this in regular, like, interactions with the people around me because it makes me look up cute animals, save them to my phone, put them in this email, and then later on when I go to pull something else, I get a whole camera roll of cute animals.
Oh, it's incredible. I do it at work with certain people.
I am in awe of how simple and also the ingenuity behind that. Congratulations, you've done so well.
I love the idea of us becoming really close friends and getting into a fight, but we're still sending each other those animal pictures.
Like, I really don't like that you did this, Michael. Cute, dear.
I can't believe you said that to me. It was the worst things anyone ever told me in my life. Cute little kangaroo. All right, so let's officially get started. Can you state your name, something about you, could be job, hobby, favorite color, whatever, and then if you have an item from your childhood that you still own now?
Ooh, okay. So my name is Donna Ramone. I write for Razorcake, but rarely consider myself a writer. And so when I was born, my mom's sister who is much younger than her, was still in college in Texas, and she flew out to California. And my guess is she bought it in the airport, but she bought this little armadillo, this like stuffed armadillo, and she gave it to me as a newborn baby. And then it just sort of, like, as a family that never threw things away, because you never know, and also sentimentality tied with those things, I to this day have this armadillo. At some point in my life I named him Marky. Me and Marky still hang out all the time. He used to have a little tag that said Alamo on the side, but the tag disintegrated and disappeared into the ether at some point. So maybe he was from the Alamo. But yes,
he survived the Alamo, I guess.
He did. And I still have him.
I have one too. I think it was like my first Easter or something. I got a monkey. His name is Mr. Monkey. He's in the bedroom right now. You should send me a picture of a Marky if you remember.
Oh, I mean, do you want me to bring him?
He's with you now. Please.
I can't find Marky. I can't remember where I stashed him after I got a dog.
That is, wow. I feel really bad for Marky. He was replaced.
Nope. I found him.
Okay. All right, let's meet Marky. Here we go.
Here we go.
Marky's debut.
There he is.
Yay! Oh wow, I pictured him differently. Very cute.
Yeah.
Aw.
I kept him in pretty good condition.
Shape. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You can't fully tell, but like his top is sort of sun bleached from sitting near my window for so many years in my parents' house, which was also my house at the time, I guess.
I'm very sentimental with shit too, so.
Yeah. I love this thing.
I've
cried so many tears into this strange plush.
I love that quote. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a would you rather question.
Okay.
And I want you to really put some thought into this. Would you rather water taste like chocolate milk for the rest of your life, no matter what mood you're in? Water is always tastes like chocolate milk. Or every time you pee, you have to tell the closest person to you.
Oh, water tastes like chocolate milk. And I will tell you why. That one takes me no time at all, because I don't like the taste of water and I love the taste of chocolate milk.
Okay.
It's a sincere problem that I have in terms of dehydration. I love to say like, "Oh, I come from desert people, so we don't need that much water." That's a lie. That's not how the human body works. And I force myself to drink water in like very cool mugs and containers to make myself feel better about it. But generally, I don't know how else to explain it. I just don't like the taste of water.
Is that really why you buy those mugs? Specifically because you don't like water?
It's part of it. Yeah. Like I love a glass or like a cool mug so much that I'm like, well, if I put water in it, I'll enjoy it more.
Like that
Or
tactic.
seltzer definitely changed my life because I'm like, oh, if I put bubbles in it, it doesn't taste as
That was
bad.
like
But
my
that's
grandma.
not I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't particularly like water, and it is a sincere problem. Though as somebody on the internet and then my partner referred it back to me that when you're a little kid you think coffee is an adult drink, and
Yep.
then when you're a teenager you think alcohol is an adult drink, but then when you're an adult it turns out the real adult drink is water.
It's very true. Very true.
And so maybe I'm not just maybe not great at being an adult.
I would think that the whole chocolate milk thing when you're not feeling well, I guess you don't have to drink water, but like just the thought of drinking, I might have to go with the telling people when I pee, because I can't imagine like feeling sick and then having a glass of water and it tastes like chocolate milk. I feel like that would be awful.
Nope, that would I would be a healthier person if I could like buy a health food store tablet that somehow changed my water intake.
Okay, well we're gonna hold on. My assist, can you get on making water taste like chocolate milk? I don't know, a pill or something. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, we're gonna work on that.
Thank you.
Could you tell me a little bit about Razorcake and like your role in it, maybe when it started?
So I got involved with Razorcake probably in like 2010. That's a guess. Razorcake's been around since 2001. It is maybe the only DIY punk fanzine that is a 501c3. So actually went through the proper channels to become a certified nonprofit. Uh, Ethics uh, are the core of it. So yeah, music is a big part of it, but a lot of Razorcake doesn't necessarily include. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of personal stories, comics. There's the website and the print side that exist separately. I am a columnist for the print side, and then I'm the webcomics editor for the uh, web side, which sometimes sort of transverse each other when occasionally we have empty pages and it's like, Donna, can we get a comic put in the print? And so I'm like, okay, now I need to figure out the logistics of the print because it's
Right.
completely different. So I work on like the logistics side of everything in terms of web and tech, but just actually like writing, submitting, and just like letting everybody else do their thing.
So you mean like
And
in a graphic designy type of way, like you structure what things look like, or?
not just that, it's more that I am responsible for structuring and making sure that it looks how it's supposed to look on the web, which involves a lot of the back end coding.
Okay.
But then there's also like, when does it post? How do you schedule it? Uh, Making sure it looks good on socials as opposed to how it looks on our WordPress instance,
Right.
stuff like that. The donation drive is actually going on right now for the rest of the month, which is probably the only fundraising that we do at any point, and it's bi-monthly, so it comes out every other month, and so 6 issues a year for $17. It's very important for us that it stay sustainable and inexpensive and punk as it is. A lot of us, like myself, we sponsor spaces, so we'll pay for a year of 25 issues to go to a place so that anybody who visits said place can grab one for free.
Right. And do
So
you
yeah,
do?
it is. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the donations. Is that monthly? When the is that random, or how often does that happen?
We do it's more or less a pledge drive, just like your public radio station, that we
Okay.
do once a year in December.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And people
But
can
you
when
can always get a subscription.
okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and $17 is for the year.
And on the site, it's describes DIY punk culture as something often misrepresented and misunderstood. Have you noticed there like been a shift or things have pretty much stayed the same? Have they gotten better, worse in terms of the misrepresentation of that?
You know, that is a really good question, because when you say the word punk, it means something specific to people like you and I, and it means something very different to, say, like, my parents, and it means something very different to, like, my coworkers. So at times when you think people get it, or have like some idea of the subculture, a lot of times they can be just wholesale wrong. And they are people who may even subscribe themselves to that subculture.
Right.
And I find that the most interesting. To give a couple examples, so like Razorcake and Co., we are DIY punk in that a lot of the bands and the music that we listen to have a ton of overlap, and we generally can make fun of the same types of parts of punk because of our understanding of these subcultures. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But then some of like your bigger, more corporate bands, and we have that, and it's fine. You know, we don't we can have those conversations and it's funny to us and we get it.
Right.
But then uh example number one, uh I was at a Christmas party kind of get together of a bunch of people who help out at the Natural History Museum here in Salt Lake City. And so I knew two of the people because I mostly help with the database and cataloging. So I help with a very different thing in one particular area, and all of these people help out in different ways throughout. And so these were people that I didn't know and had never met. And so one was this really young kid that was like, "Your leather jacket's really cool." And like, "What does this button mean?" And I'm like, "Well, it's actually vegan leather because, you know, let's talk about consuming animals." And but at the same time, he was just such a sweet kid who
Right.
was probably like 17. And then he had an older brother who was older than me. So he was already like 40 or so.
Mm.
And he was drunk and he interjects and he's like, "Back in my day." And I was like, "Oh no." And he's like, "Kids these days don't know how to circle pit. Nobody knows how to slam dance. Music this day is all the music now is terrible. I mean, whatever happened to?" And then he just names off like the 5 punk bands you get into when you're 12.
Right. Right.
And I lost my temper and I got in a fight with this man in the middle of the bar where I was like, "Punk didn't stop because you stopped going."
Right.
People learned that when strangers run into you and you don't like it, it's not okay.
Did this guy was he like visually, did he look like any type of punk even stereotypically, or was he just reminiscing about the old times?
He was literally reminiscing.
Okay.
No part of him was ever invested in this culture in an
Right.
effort to actually do anything for anyone. And now that it no longer served him as a 40-year-old, he was like, "Oh, kids these days don't." And it's like, "Oh, just fuck off
Yeah.
forever." Like,
Yeah.
nobody needed you then, and we definitely don't need you now.
It's
Um,
like one of those things where, oh, sorry, go on.
and I was like, and he just falls into that same thing of like, "Did you know like the actual punk rock are Republicans?" Like, I'm sure you've heard that one.
Yeah, yeah.
And he fully would fall into that camp now.
Yeah, yeah. People who have like this little tiny nugget of knowledge that they learn who knows where, and they're like, "Yeah, I know all about punk. I get it. Like, I love corn. I'm punk." Like, you've tabled at a lot of zine fests,
Mhm.
right? Like just from through Razorcake and everything. Can you tell me something really awkward or aggressive that happened at one?
Oh my god, oh my god, I have such a good one. So this is like top 10 worst conversations I ever had in my life, Michael, in
This
my
one right
life.
now between you and I, you mean, right?
No, stop it. You are wonderful. Okay, so this was in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Okay. And um I think it was Alt Press Fest, which is one that's actually held by the Salt Lake City's public library. So it's a bigger one. And at some point, somebody walked over. So I was splitting a table with my friend Ricky Vigil. And so I had Razorcake stuff. Ricky has occasionally done stuff with Razorcake. He does a lot of cool things. And he had made these really big buttons. And there were two kinds where it said, "Ska is still cool," and another one that said, "Ska was never cool." And both of them are very funny
Yeah.
and tongue
I
in
like that.
cheek. And Salt Lake City is one of those places where, for who knows what reason, ska never actually died here.
Okay.
It crusted and then it just stayed. So, as someone that never really listened to ska and don't really know much about it. It
Hmm.
definitely it was a learning curve when I got here. Okay. So one of the other tablers comes over and he sees Ricky's buttons. And of course, Ricky went to the bathroom. So I was covering for him, right? And then he gets like visibly upset by the ska was never cool button. And and proceeds to like want to like and like gets agitated, but
Yeah.
clearly hates confrontation. So he's just like, what why does it say this? But like why? And I was like, oh well, there's another one that says um like ska is still cool. See,
Right.
it's like it's a balance. It's funny because
Was a
you
little
know,
alarm in your head going off at this point? Like, this is not going in a
no,
good place? Okay.
no, not at
Okay.
all. And so I was just like, oh, you know, like my friend, there is a balance. And the balance between those things is the general understanding that ska is bad.
Hmm.
So it's okay to like it, but also it's corny. It's the butt of jokes. We all know this. You can still love it and understand the thing you like is bad.
Right.
And he became more agitated at me saying these things and then starts to like stammer and tell me that he runs something called the Salt Lake City Ska Archive. And I'm like, cool. Is it an actual archive? Like, is it physical? And he's like, yeah, it's in my basement. And I'm like, oh, so you're just like collecting all this stuff. Okay.
Right.
And he's like, but it's like online and it has things. And I want to like add all the lyrics and it's really important. And it's part of like the cultural history of the city. And I'm like, I'm not going to deny that. That's pretty cool. You know, I actually, you know, I went to library school. So if you know, what is your like archiving techniques and stuff like that? And he was like, what? No, it's not. I'm just, it's in my basement and it's important. And I was like, oh my God. So I try to pivot, right? So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and turn this into a more pleasant conversation. And somehow I managed to like just ask him like, oh, what brought you here? And so he starts like telling me that he's tabling over on the other side and he's got some comics and some of the stuff he worked on at the Center for Cartoon Studies. And I was like, get out of town. The Center for Cartoon Studies, one of my best friends just got his MFA from there over in Vermont. I actually visited and everything. And I'm like watching his face somehow get worse than when the ska stuff
Oh,
was happening. So
Jesus.
I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, oh, when were you there? Like, when did you get your degree? I didn't get my degree. I'm so sorry to hear that. And he was like, yeah, yeah, I didn't pass and I had to leave. And he's like, yeah, there's a documentary about me failing the
Okay.
school. And at this point I'm like, there's no salvaging.
Yeah, no.
I have just I have I have managed to take two of the most precious things in your life and punch at them so hard
There's
in
a
my effort to have a conversation with
documentary about him. Have you seen this documentary or tried to track it down?
No, no. Okay, so my friend who went to CCS, I talked to him later and was like, "Hey, so I ran into this kid and I had the worst conversation possible. I'm pretty sure I ruined his day by trying by, by thinking I was being innocuous or just like
Right.
having a conversation and
Yeah.
inadvertently bringing up like the the best worst parts of his whole life." And I was like, yeah, he mentioned being in a documentary and I hear like that sound and it's like,
Mm.
oh no. And he's like, yeah, we like all watch that documentary as like people who are going through the Center for Cartoon Studies of just sort of like, here's this cool documentary about the whole school and everything going on. And he just pauses and he's like, let me guess, it was the Mormon kid who dropped out, wasn't it? And I was like, did he drop out? And he was like, oh no, he didn't drop out. He like had to leave because he couldn't pass. And I was like, yeah, I met him. He lives in Salt Lake.
Well, now I feel bad for this guy.
I know. And it was like I said, I can feel myself sweating right now, remembering how bad this conversation went of someone who is like, no, ska was never bad. Ska is actually beautiful and is a huge part of my life. So much so that I have an entire basement and website dedicated to it. How dare you? And then when I tried to pivot, I basically brought up his life's biggest failure. So that was the worst time
I think I
ever.
have a way that you and I can fix this situation. And give me your
How?
thoughts on this. First of all, what is the archive called again?
I think it's called the Salt Lake City Ska Archive.
Okay. So let's produce a bunch of shirts that say the Salt Lake City Ska Archive rules or rocks, whichever word you think is better. And we'll just
Okay.
make 50 of them. I think that might help the situation.
And just have like checkerboard all the way around.
Yep. Yep. Or maybe on the
Get it?
back, it's just a square checkerboard or something, and just the front, or we'll figure out the logistics. But what do you think?
Okay. I think if I did this, he might forgive me, and or I hope that he doesn't remember me.
I like the idea of actually making those shirts. I think we should really do that. I would totally wear one.
I mean, there is upwards of 10 people I can think of in the city that would buy that shirt. So
all right, if we do, we're going to send him one for free.
oh my God, that poor man.
Based on your presence on social media, you seem to be very into Halloween and dressing up. Was like,
I'm a big fan.
When did that start? When you started going all out?
Started going all out probably around the time I started to have a little disposable income. But even then, like, I was definitely the spooky kid. As my dad always likes to be like, you always like that Halloween junk. And it was always my favorite holiday because I got to run around outside in a costume and get candy. I don't know why you would like anything else. It's like, it's not cold yet. It's one, you get to run around at night, which is exciting for a kid who definitely had the kind of parents that were really overprotective, and I couldn't really do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, when did I get into like figuring out like it would have to be after high school.
Okay.
So I would say sometime after high school. Well, I did dress up quite a bit in high school. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm just saying like the time I could actually like figure out how liquid latex works.
Yeah.
Happened a little bit after, and it was actually like a big social activity with a group of friends of mine where we had all kinds of stuff that we would dress up for throughout the year.
Okay.
And so we felt this need to like all of us showing up and looking amazing was like important to us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's when I started. And then like reading books about like how to do monster makeup, like following Rick Baker.
Right.
And seeing like how he actually created things, and then just sort of building from there.
Yeah, Cynthia, I think I even saw a picture of you dressing up for Christmas. Like you had a robe and like a little candle. So you definitely seem to like that experience of dressing up. And you said it's a little bit like community based, like your friends all like. Do you have a group of friends who like to dress up as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was back when I was still in California, and a bunch of us did it. I haven't really encountered too much of that here in Salt Lake, but it's still fun for me. So
right. was Halloween when you were I think we're of similar age. I don't know how you are with age, like
Oh, I'm 37.
Okay. Yeah, so we're almost exactly the same age. Was when you were growing up, did Halloween still feel, I don't know how it feels now because I don't have a lot of like youths in my life, but did it feel dangerous? Like going out on the street?
Wow.
Okay, yeah, I totally have the opposite experience.
Yeah, no. Oh, really? Yeah, no,
yeah.
not at all. I grew up in the suburbs.
Oh, yeah.
And
I grew up on Long
like,
Island, on the Long Island suburbs, so.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, it was like, oh, look, it's the same people I see all year.
Yeah.
Given though, I will say this, having moved to Salt Lake City, I've never been in like wooded areas in my life, really, outside of like very specific, you drove out that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like my family never went camping. We didn't go hiking. These aren't, immigrant parents. It's like, why would you do that? You have running water here. And so I never did that until I got much older. And now as an adult, one, I'm not a big fan of the dark. It kind of scares me. And then being in like trees or the woods when it's dark, it's terrifying.
I went not that long ago. I went on my first ever, possibly only ever, solo backpacking trip, and I was by myself on a mountain, and it was an experience. When I could have screamed bloody murder, and nobody would have heard me if something happened. It was not for me. I like I don't go into nature to be away from people. I just do it to be in nature. I'd rather people be there. But yeah, in terms of like Long Island Halloween, Long Island's, I don't know how much you know about it. It's there's
How
an
much?
aggressive culture there. So like I have prominent memories of people just patrolling around Halloween as I was growing. It wasn't like the worst thing ever. Like you weren't gonna die, but they would put either a bunch of flour or a bar of soap in a sock and tie it real tight and then whip it around and try to hit you randomly and then run off. Things like that. So it wasn't like you're getting beaten with bats, but it wasn't, there was a danger to it when I was growing up where I was from.
Yeah, I mean, there was one year where some kids tried to steal my brother's candy and I managed to
Mm,
knock them down and get it back, but like that was it.
yeah.
I mean, pumpkin smashing maybe. You know, now that I'm like actually digging into it and thinking about it, maybe I was the danger. Maybe I was the bad kid.
Oh boy, this is breaking news.
Because I mean, one, I love Halloween, but part of what I loved about Halloween is like running around and scaring people and like
Right.
causing a ruckus and like breaking stuff. And, growing up on the West Coast, and then like some kid would move to high school and be like, yeah, I moved here from New Jersey. And they'd be like, what do you mean you guys don't have Devil's Night? What do you mean you guys don't have Hell Night? And I'm like, what is this? We need this. Maybe we can start it.
It'd be
Yeah.
funny if this is just
Yeah.
a revelation and you're like, I did beat up a lot of people every Halloween. Maybe I will.
No.
Okay.
No. I think stealing candy from a child on Halloween is like
Oh, it's
maybe the
awful.
most dastardly thing
It's
you
so
could do.
bad.
No. It was like hiding in the dark and scaring people was
Yeah. I
important.
mean, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so 9/11 never let me forget. I
Yeah.
guess it would be considered an essay, right? I'm so dumb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it was written at like three different points that are
Yeah.
now even outdated as they are.
Right.
Um, and that it was like the first one was written, the second one was written, and that was when it was like, maybe we can like collate all of this. And then that's when I wrote the last part to turn it into its own
Right.
like zine. But at this point, I mean, I could write about 9/11 forever.
Right. Well, first of all, I just want to say I learned through that your last name isn't really Ramone, and I just want to say, how dare you? How dare you? I just
Listen,
want
when
to
you
ask.
come up with your own pen name when you're 12, it turns out not that unique.
I
You
just
think
wanted to
it
ask.
is when you're 12.
That's cool that you had a pen name when you were 12. I definitely don't. I do not think I had that back then. I wouldn't
I
even
mean, I
walk
wanted to
into
give
that.
myself that last name pretty
I've
bad after I found out the
always
Ramones
hated
existed.
my name. So, all right. So I just want to ask a few quick questions about it. So first
Sure.
of all, in the essay, you kind of go into how the first time you ran into like ethnicity based hate fully was like around age 7 during the Gulf War when some kid yelled, "Go back to your country" at you, and you quote said, this is my country, butt face. And I want to know, is that the first time you realized you were punk?
No, I didn't realize I was punk until maybe 13 or 14, but at that time I was like so heavily steeped in goth
Okay.
that I wasn't, even though like the music that I listened to was almost primarily punk at the time.
Mm,
The punks at my high school sort of crossed over, and I was friends with them, especially by the end. But like some of the punks crossed over with like the skate kids, and the skate
same
kids
here.
were
Yep.
like they were just like a different flavor of jock where
Yeah.
they terrorized everybody.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. In my experience, the skate kids were kind of like benign almost. They looked grungy or whatever, but no one really fucked with them, and they didn't really fuck with people. But there was a little crossover with the goths. In when I was growing up, it was the freaks. That was just if
Yeah.
you generally looked weird. Okay, yeah. Like I had green hair and all this shit. I was considered a freak, but there was definitely some crossover in certain areas. But you also mentioned in the essay there was a guy in college who commented about paving over the Middle East. So like thinking about the kid who screamed that "Go back to your country" at you, and the guy in college, just people like that. I'm wondering what you think about how much room for redemption should we leave people like this, like the college, probably the kid's parents who said that to you. I'm sure it wasn't just something in his own head. And
Yeah.
is like thinking about even giving these people room for redemption a step in the wrong direction? Should that be like way down the line we start thinking about that?
That is such a good question, because I used to come from a place of like wanting to just like constantly want to give the redemption, where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like they are all so steeped in ignorance and just this void, because I'm not really running into that many, like in the wild, I'm not really running into that many Arab Muslim people.
Mhm.
And so I can't imagine what it's like when you are so, insular in your social groups, where someone like me is like such a far off aberration that it's like unthinkable that someone exists where they're like, yeah, no, Christmas is not a thing. And they're
Right.
like, what? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the idea of like, I actually have this whole other holiday, and it involves 30 days of not eating. And they're like, no, no. And it's the idea that like I live in this household with these people that I do all these things that they can't even like comprehend or understand because they never saw it in a movie. It's not on TV, and they haven't gone into that house, and those people weren't at their school, and that
Right.
person isn't their friend. And it's such a non-idea that when you have something like the Gulf War in 1990, they're like, oh, that's what that is. It's that.
Yep.
It's people yelling and then subsequently dying in these deserts, but it's okay because America.
Mhm.
And so I would try really hard to come to terms with that and say, like, you deserve all this redemption because you don't know.
Right.
And there's a lot I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like there isn't things I don't know, and that I want someone else to give me that breathing room to come to terms and learn those things.
Right.
But then if we're looking at 2001 and people learning that, or pre 2001 and then post 2001, of like, no, they're bad people. They're inherently bad people. And then my want and need starts to cross of wanting to give them that sort of redemptive arc to come here and meet me and be like, oh, I have a friend now, and they're Muslim and they're Arab, and I suddenly get these things. And what? You're normal. You're just a normal person, trying to bring that back crosses over with my own safety.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunate, and that has only increased in the past 20 years, to the point where I don't put myself out there to give them that kind of, like, to deliberately want to, like, give them that platform of redemption.
Right.
Because it's so much harder.
Yeah.
Because there's one of like making an ignorant comment and being like, let me take you there, as opposed to somebody that's like, no, I wholesale believe that you are an aberration to humanity. And it's like, I can't, shit.
Yeah.
How do I?
Automatically now all of the pressure and all of the responsibility lies on other people to be like, no, let me show you the way to redemption. It's not about the person who's saying it. They're not going to find it on their own. So it's like, I get that. It's like, I don't want to put this effort in all the time. That's why I wonder if maybe the more realistic way would just be as mixing as much as we can, everyone together, getting more exposure, like having kids meet up people who look different earlier on, and then maybe it'll start in the future generation start fixing the issues. I have no fucking idea.
I don't know either. Like, there was how like feel good things will go viral, and everybody who is neoliberal will be like, oh, and they'll just like think that somehow like this one video getting shared is going to change things.
Yeah.
One of the ones I saw was it was a kindergarten class where parents were invited to do story time, right? Where different parents of all the students were invited to come in, sit on the chair, read the book to the students, right? And I remember this happening, but only like certain moms basically coming in to do it on occasion. But generally, it was just my teacher. And the video was of a Muslim family where the mother was like, my English is really bad. And the teacher was like, well, why don't you just read a children's book in Arabic? And you can just read it in Arabic to the kids for story time. And I had to sit with that one when I saw it, of like, what the fuck would my life be if someone had done that with me and my mom?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't begin to know, because let me tell you, my elementary school teachers they were something. They were all something.
They were not very sensitive, I'm guessing.
No, and at different points, certain ones definitely like labeled me bad kid.
Yeah.
And then I felt, and then like, despite the fact that I've always been an A student,
Mhm.
and like, I got a stupid amount of college degrees now. And looking back, I'm like, what the fuck did I even do that was even really bad per
Right.
se?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Mm.
like I wanted to stay out late and I didn't get to. The end. Like
Yeah.
I didn't do bad things, but I was very much labeled like bad kid, and I was treated like a bad kid, and I was
Ah,
told by elementary school teachers like, you are detention, you have detention, you need to stay after school. And then when I would be alone with them, they would tell me things like, you're not going to have a future
I
because you're
mean,
bad.
damn.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then they would, but then they would definitely treat other students, particularly like girls who were very like pretty and white.
Yeah.
They would be given, they were very much elevated and considered, like the best in the class. Even though I would get grades better than them, grades didn't matter.
Yep. That's completely ridiculous. I had in high school, I was definitely picked on by teachers. I don't know if that's the right word, but for completely non-ethnic reasons. But like everyone was so convinced that I was on hard drugs, even though I never was into them, just because they didn't at the time. I think it's gotten better now, but understand how to deal with people who were struggling with some mental issues. So I mean, I can't tell you how many drug tests I went for no fucking reason. And then they started making me get mental evaluations, and it was just like all the teachers had given up on me at that point. I think and I hope it's different now, but I'm not saying they're the same at all. But it almost forces us to take like an aggressive stance against it in a weird way. I don't know. I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
No, you're so right. Because then it becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy where at a certain point you're like, I don't feel this way, but everybody's treating me this way. So maybe I am this way. So then I guess I am this way.
Right. Yeah. 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 Especially when you're younger. Especially when you're younger.
Like
Um,
I went to court twice for ditching school in high school.
yeah.
And I'm like, did other people have to go to court for this?
Right. Right.
Did everybody go to court? Because one time I didn't even ditch class. I just left campus during lunch, which at my school wasn't allowed, but turns out is allowed at like a lot of high schools. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I left campus for lunch for a fruit smoothie,
That's
and I
fucking.
had to go to court.
That is so insane.
Like I was already like thrown into the penal system because
Yeah.
I wanted a fruit smoothie.
There's just one more question about the not kind of like a comment question about the essay, and then a few other things. First of all, in it, you also mentioned how your uncle, I think it was your uncle, was a Bahraini. Is that how to pronounce it?
Yeah, Bahraini.
Bahraini. Okay,
Yeah.
diplomat who was like in pictures with Saddam Hussein, and that your grandmother like mentioned how she thought he was a great leader, and it really struck me when I was reading, like, holy shit. I remember so many people talking shit about Saddam Hussein growing up. I can't imagine as a little kid. Did that feel like an incredible burden or like a dark secret to you? Like, how did that
No,
sit with
it was the most severe cognitive dissonance
you? Okay.
of just deep, deep confusion that I
Right.
could not make sense of,
Yeah.
that I could not understand because nobody gave me anything.
Right.
All I did was get conflicting considerations. I think later on, when I was a little bit older, my mom kind of gave me some uh like knowledge and nuance to the entire thing. And I
Mm,
mean, now if you feel like it, you can go back historically and be like, oh, that's weird. Iraqi citizens actually did like overwhelmingly support the dictatorship. It was that America didn't.
right.
That's, huh. Let's take a look into Cuba. Let's see how that one panned
Right.
out. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. Or, yeah, so let's look at different South American. What does America do? What does America do? It just becomes, it becomes so much more of a different thing
Yeah.
when you get older and you have the the pieces and you have the like cognitive uh ability to
Right.
understand gray instead of black and white. Whereas
Yeah.
as a kid, it was it it I cannot fully even give words to just like how deeply, deeply confusing it was. I didn't get it.
Yeah, I was feeling emotional reading it because I was just picturing this little kid like you're not equipped mentally yet to fully deal with all this. I'm like, oh my God, like that, it must have been such a burden. Like, what the fuck? How do I feel? What should I feel? Oh, fuck.
And you know, I that's what therapy's for as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of what it is. And that same uncle, that's a whole different thing. So that same uncle, so he's a diplomat, and he was the diplomat to Iraq, and prior to that he was the diplomat to Russia. um and we visited him when I was a kid in Russia, not realizing that it was like maybe a year after the USSR fell. And I'm like, things are weird in this country. People seem unhappy. Things are kind of drab. What's that about? What's going on here, Moscow? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, as a 9-year-old trying to get that, just fully did not happen. But yeah, that same uncle, when he was still stationed in Iraq, and the reason why he was is because his now ex-wife and his 2 kids, she was Iraqi, and they met and they were living in Bahrain, and then she ended up, I think they got divorced, and she went back to Baghdad with their kids, and so he wanted to be stationed there so he could still see his daughters. And so any country that had an allyship with the US that was also a Middle Eastern country was considered traitorous to different groups, particularly Al-Qaeda. Not so much the Islamic State, who are much smaller than people. I don't think people realize like what a tiny group they are. Right. Whereas like Al-Qaeda is like really big and broad, covers a lot. Same with like Hamas and pro-Palestinian groups. And I think it was the Egyptian ambassador was kidnapped and had gone missing for a couple weeks, and everybody knew that he was going to get killed, and then he was. And then who was the other one? There was another ambassador was targeted. I think he might have gone away. And so at this point, everybody knew, like, you need to get out. And I think my uncle was a bit hard-headed and refused, because Bahrain is very much a US ally in the same way that Saudi Arabia is, because they're so close. And he deliberately drove this garbage Toyota Tercel. Maybe it was a Camry, but it was like the worst. Like, for a diplomat, he drove like just this garbage car so he wouldn't ever be targeted. And then he got a knock at the door one day, opened it up. They put the guns in his face. He put his hands up, and then they're like, "You're coming with us." And he's like, "Okay, yes, I am." And then he took like one step, and then he slammed the door and ran for the garage. They shot through the door, and I think he got hit then. And then he got into his car, and then he took off in his car. But as soon as he got out, they were actually waiting in like an open bed truck, and they opened fire on the car. Ugh. And so he got shot 2 or 3 times in the arm, and that was it. And he drove himself to the hospital. But we didn't have any other thing other than my uncle had been shot and he was at the hospital.
Right.
And so there was a brief minute of like, is he dead? We have no idea. Where was he shot?
Yeah.
Can the hospital protect him, or will they just get into the hospital? Does the hospital have enough security? And I'm actually pretty close with this uncle. And so when I go back to Bahrain and I visit him, and he's like, "Hey, so there's like, so when you put on a gutra, which is sort of that like a scarf that is sort of like deliberately done different ways in different countries on your head, underneath that is sort of a tight fitting, it almost looks like a doily cap, right? And what it basically does is it's the same as a top sheet. It's meant to like keep your head oils, to keep your scarf kind of thing. And it also creates a better like friction to keep it in place, right? Yep. But it requires a little bit of a little more like motor control and sort of like tactile, you know, to get it to sit just right on your head. and he doesn't have that kind of control of his hand as much anymore because he got shot through like right here and right here. So
Right.
he lost it in 2 different places. So his hand doesn't work as well, and he wears a compression glove. And so he'll like, I'll be passing by and he'd be like, "Hey, real quick, can you just help me get this on?"
Yeah.
Good. And I'm like, yeah. And that is what I think about. And that is what I like hold in my heart deeply when someone goes, "Oh, you're an Arab Muslim. What are you, a terrorist?"
Yeah. 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 Right.
And it's uh, to even be able to unwind all of those emotions and all those feelings, be like, do you have any idea how much you are not targeted and how badly my family was?
Right. Yep. He definitely would have been killed had he have gone with them, right?
Oh yeah,
He saved his own life by trying to get away. And it's
yeah, he did.
amazing that he did live. That's a incredible story.
I mean, I can't imagine being shot twice in 2 parts of your right arm and then having to drive stick shift in a crappy car all the way to the hospital at full speed
Yep. Yep.
for your own life. So yeah, the photo of him. So there's a one like AP photo that went out, and he's like holding. So he's on a stretcher. He's holding up his arm like this, and there is just from like shoulders down to his knees blood. So when you see that, you're like, I don't even know where he was shot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there is so much blood, and it was from his arm, but you can't tell because he had to do this for
Right.
so long, and the adrenaline that it just sort of soaked him.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. So you posted and oh, by the way, if you're like, I gotta get going soon, just let me know.
I'm good. I'm good
Okay.
till 2, which
Okay.
means nothing to you because Eastern time.
Right, right. So there's a picture of it's an older one of a calendar, and on that calendar is a doodle, which I'm assuming you drew. And on your birthday, it says you're 34, gross. Is that an accurate representation of like how your relationship with aging, or was that just a joke?
You know what? I think it might have been when I hit 30, it was such a like big, huge like monument of like I made it to 30. And it was also huge because I was 30 when I finally like moved out of, like, not only did I move out of like the home that I grew up in, but like I moved to another state. So it was like this huge momentous thing. And like 30 is great. Like 30 is this like great thing. And then when you get to like the weird numbers, like 34, I was just like, what? Does time just keep going? Do I become like less punk over time? And so it was just sort of like a half joke to myself of like, oh, 34, gross.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, I have a very
Yeah.
complicated relationship with aging. That's why that caught me. I
You know,
I'm
there
not
might
up
be
with it.
something deep rooted there. Because I
Right.
know my mom definitely is like, what are you gonna do when you get old and like nobody loves you? And I was like, could you not, mom?
Ugh, that's the worst. I just hate
Yeah.
aging. But whatever. Can you name whatever pops in your head? I'm sure there's a bunch because there is for me. A horror movie that you have a strong emotional connection with.
I would say one of the there's a couple. And so I would say there, okay, so one right off that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because I saw that one when I was pretty young,
Mm.
and it was the first time that I watched a horror movie where the feeling, so normally you watch like Freddy or Jason, and you're
Mm.
just like, this is like not real and very supernatural and very like, systematic in the slasher thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a group of people on a road trip getting just like one bad thing after another and just being like, let's just go over to this house for help. And then being trapped
Yeah.
in that way.
Mhm.
And there's the one scene in particular of when the woman tries to run and Leatherface comes out, grabs her from behind, and just like carries her back in and slams the door. The very, very iconic scene. That was the first time I watched a horror movie, and I realized like, oh, I'm the girl in this situation, and I would absolutely die.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
If a
yeah.
man if a man came up behind me and picked me up to murder me in that way, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done just like she is. And that just like, whoo, whoo, that's a different kind of fear.
I watched that movie not long ago. It still affects me. I still like it's a freaking you're like watching a nightmare that potentially could really happen. It's It's a really effective movie still.
That one is an effective one. The other one would be Dario Argento's Inferno, only because I watched it with a bunch of friends. I absolutely loved it, and everybody else also loved it, but also we couldn't help laughing at like all of it.
Right.
So it was this mix of like such a like gorgeous, like very like saturated, very like the soundtrack and everything is like, and all the scenes are so fantastic. And I think like Mario Bava had some part in it, so it just like, it's such a like beautiful giallo. And then at the same time there's like this woman in the middle of the classroom that is like holding this white cat and kept turning around, and every time she would show up we'd be like, look at that Fiona Apple fan, look at her, you can tell.
I just watched the Bird with the Crystal Plumage for the first time the other day, actually. Yeah, he's pretty incredible. Just aesthetically, he's fucking incredible. And I mean him personally, just to look at him, not his movies.
He is
aesthetically, he's just...
he is like that like forehead to face ratio is something with Dario Argento.
He looks how you should look if you're making
1,000%. 1,000%.
What's something you do that's irresponsible for the environment? For instance, me, when it's really cold and I get out of the shower, sometimes I'll leave the hot water on a little longer just to keep the steam in the room.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm trying to think, what do I do? The way I wash the dishes. The way I wash the dishes is not great. So I've never had a dishwasher in my life. So I have to always like do dishes in a sink, and I am not great at doing the like just wet them all, actually wash them, and then wet them again and put them away. Like, nope, I end up with running water. It's a trickle, but I straight up leave the water running while I do dishes. My sink's too small. I don't know.
I'm going to read you 2 article titles and then ask you a question about them.
Okay.
So here's number 1. 1,500-pound horse rescued from mud pit at Canadian sanctuary. Here's my question. What's the heaviest thing you ever lifted?
Ooh, that's a good question. Successfully?
Yeah, let's say successfully. Yeah.
Let's say successfully. That would be, I'm trying to think. That would be my dresser. I had to get all the drawers out, but a solid wood dresser from my studio apartment, which was on the first level, and then one of my neighbors moved out and I moved into his apartment. That was a 1-bedroom upstairs, so up the stairs.
Yeah, there's something about those well-made old school dressers that it feels like they weigh way more than they should.
And like getting it up the stairs was just me just like ka-thunk as I got it up there. But I got it. Yeah, that was probably the heaviest thing I lifted. Also, when you read that title, all I could think about was Artax in Never Ending Story. Like, are we gonna talk about like the time a horse represented depression? Because
destroyed my childhood. It was brought up in an early episode, that movie. What a huge part of my childhood, terrifying me and just like opening my mind about how incredible like fantasy could be. And that was really intense as a kid watching that.
And it's like early in the movie too. Anyway.
Yeah. So all right, here's the second article. Stolen Bigfoot statue found along road in Santa Cruz Cruz County. Okay, have you ever stolen anything significant? Not like gum or something like that. Something big or something strange, maybe.
I'm trying to think. I think me and my friend stole a big lawn ornament out of like a rich house once. They probably never noticed. It was like a big unnecessary thing.
Right.
I stole a big like fiberglass Santa once.
That's perfect. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. Sorry, Christmas.
Did you use it yourself or did you just steal it for fun just to fuck with someone?
No, like earlier in the night, one of my friends stole Joseph's cane from a nativity, just the cane, and then
Yeah.
he pretended to be Charlie Chaplin the rest of the night. And then the fiberglass Santa just like went along with the debauchery, and then later we just curb stomped him.
Okay. Secondary question to this is, do you believe in any cryptids?
Okay, actually believe in any cryptids at
Yeah, like
this point?
Yeah, legit believe.
Legit believe. I hate it. I hate that I might have to say no. And here's the thing. I kind of almost maybe live for cryptid. Where's my little guys? Here you go. So I've got like two of my favorite friends. So here's Mothman, and here's the Flatwoods Monster. Mothman, because this is probably the wildest of all the stories.
I love Mothman.
And there are so many. Oh my God, I have so much Mothman stuff.
Yeah. I'm a fan of the Mothman Prophecies. I know it's not considered a great movie, but I love that movie.
You know what? It is a very fun movie. Did you ever read the book?
No.
Do not. Okay. So oh my God, I have so much. I wrote letters with James Mosley, who is actually one of like the early UFOologists and stuff, but like he got that it was fun, which is part of the reason why. And I wrote him letters until he died.
That's awesome.
He was very fun. I drew a picture of Mothman in one of the letters, and he reproduced it in the Saucer Smear, which was his zine that he had going for like 30 years or whatever.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, I know, these are the things nobody cares about, but I just love it, especially when it's fun, you know?
Yeah.
The second you make it not fun and you're like, we have to get these guns and go into this forest and go get Bigfoot, and you're like, no, no, don't get sonar.
Right.
Get a flashlight and have fun with your friends and leave it at that, because at the end of the day, we know it's not going to happen, and that's okay.
I feel like once you get to that point, you're one step away from believing some other crazy shit.
Basically.
Like you're one step away from flat earth. You're one step away from a lot of other stuff.
Because then then you just end up susceptible. But if there were like, I would say if there was one that I like want to believe there was more to it, I want to say it was Mothman.
Okay.
But the book is very bad because John A. Keel, who wrote it, he claims to be a journalist. And listen, as a journalism major in undergrad in 2001, there was a lot of missing journalistic integrity in his
put it lightly, I'm
journalism.
Sure. Okay.
So, but like the woman that he worked with was an actual journalist. And so when she drops out about halfway through the book and he starts interviewing people about like ostrich women aliens.
Right.
And he is not a good writer. It's really all over the place. It's hard to finish for a book that's only like 200 pages. So I don't recommend it. But there are some creepy scenes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll let her know. You might be sued for defamation. We're just.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm being told that. We'll handle it. We'll handle it off air. Can you tell me about a time where you hurt yourself in a super embarrassing way? And if you can't think of one right away, I have a story that I could start you off on.
Nope. I can think of the most recent one is, so I work pretty close to home and I can actually walk. So I work at a university campus and I can walk through the campus and then across a couple streets and I'm at my apartment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing is downhill, right? It's just like, the whole thing is a hill. So that means like walking home is totally cool. Walking to work, never going to happen. Not walking uphill in the morning. And I was walking home with my partner and we were just on a regular sidewalk pathway, the most normal thing. And I stepped where the sidewalk meets the grass. There wasn't a difference. There wasn't any difference between the level. It was just sidewalk met the grass. That was it. And that was enough for me to like my ankle went sideways. I fell over, my backpack and things went flying, like just like full dramatic spill by taking a step. And my ankle was swollen and busted and difficult to walk on for like 2 months.
Ugh, it's the worst.
And it was one of those where I'm pretty clumsy, but it was like, didn't realize the severity of the thing because it just looked so ridiculous that my partner just looked down at me and he was like, "Oh, Donna."
Oh man, Oh my God, I have this memory. I wish, you know, there are certain memories in my head that I'd be like, I think if I could take a pill, I'd wipe that one. And this is one of them.
Yeah.
I was with a bunch of friends. This was, I mean, maybe I was 16, maybe 17. Uh, and I had this band that I was really into called You and I. So I might have been 17, 18 in that area. And I was listening to them, and it wasn't to show off. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, but in front of like 5 people, I put a song on and I was blasting it, and not in a funny way, in a really into it way, was doing air guitar. And everyone was just like accepting it because I didn't ask. I just started doing it. Serious face, really trying to like look like I was playing the chords. And mid song, I was in my socks. I stepped right on a nail that was sticking out and tore my foot open. So it went from like really like emotional, serious air guitar playing in front of 5 people to falling on the floor and blood gushing out everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. It was really, really embarrassing. Her mom was a nurse. So like now the mom's coming in and patching me. The song's still blasting. It's just super embarrassing. Okay, as of right now, and I want you to be completely honest, please. Do you think we would be friends in real life? In real life?
In real life, yes.
Okay.
Easily. I am someone who I like to be friends with people. I don't know how else to describe that. I like being friends with people. I meet random people and I'm like, we are friends now. We have these like 2 shared interests and we're done here. This is amazing. And sometimes that bites me in the ass. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't.
Same here again.
I like being friends with people, and I would say absolutely, for sure. If we somehow lived in a world where people could see each other, wild, I know. Then definitely like the Razorcake meetups and stuff we do. I would do everything to try and get you to fly out.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I've only been to Utah once, and I mean, it's fucking gorgeous. Ugh.
It's very, very beautiful. Very, very Republican.
Right. Yeah, I went to Zion, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even like hang out a lot. Yeah. If I was obsessed with 1993's live action Super Mario Brothers movie, would that change how you felt about me? Would you still want to be friends with me? Like obsessed with it?
Okay, here's the thing though. Have you watched it recently?
I maybe the last time I saw it was like 7 years ago.
Okay, so there is a YouTube podcast, everything called Some More News, and sometimes they skewer things. And they recently did a movie where they discuss how much of 80s and 90s popcorn movies actually relate to the world that we're currently living in. But unfortunately, they give us the scenario where the bad thing already happened. We didn't do anything to stop it. And now we need to deal with the ramifications. And one of the most culturally related is the Super Mario Brothers movie starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo as Mario and Luigi Mario. And in the process, you see that the villain played by Dennis Hopper, King Koopa, is Donald Trump. By all means, is supposed to be Donald Trump.
All right, now I got to
go back to this. And if you were to be obsessed with it now, yes, there's the weird fungus, and yes, Princess Peach does not pass the Bechdel test. But
weird fungus, COVID connection, maybe.
Right?
We gotta team up and write an essay about this.
Well, somebody already did, and it's a 2-hour YouTube video, but
okay, true.
Here's the thing. If you were obsessed with it now and you were giving me this film analysis, I'd be like, yeah, okay, NYU is over there, but also I am enthralled anymore. I respect you. I respect that passion.
I just recently watched Jaws again, and there's the I think it's the mayor of the town definitely is Trump-y. I actually think he has more redemptive qualities than Trump does, but there's a very Trumpiness to it. Okay, can you tell me, I only have like 2 more questions here. Can you tell me a beautiful moment, and it could be something so mundane that was ruined by something really quick?
Trying to think.
Like for me, like this happened last year. I was looking at this pigeon on the side of the road, and it was in a gross looking puddle, but I ignored the grossness of the puddle. And I was just looking at this thing. This was before COVID, clearly, doing its thing, just living its life. And I literally had a moment of connection. I felt I did with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, look at this. It's just trying to live. Like, I wonder where its family is. And I felt this sense of like joy almost in being a part of the same world as this thing. And as
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of that thought and feeling that almost like the tinglies I started to get, it looked at me and then took off right over my head, and the disgusting water just splashed all over my face and my mouth. I was like, oh, that fucking figures.
Well, that just jogged a very particular memory, also similar.
Okay.
So I was walking to the bus to go to work. So this was a while back. And very like near my house, I looked over and there was a dead, either a dove or a pigeon, right? And some of it's, sort of like guts and bones you could see. So there's a good chance like a raptor got it.
Right.
And this moment of like, like mortality,
Right.
the like our, in the end, we come, we exist, we live, we die, and that's just how it is. And there were like wasps that were in it, and I'm like, I don't actually know your reason for doing this, wasp, but there's probably a reason, because this is how animals operate, I guess, and just like having that moment and wanting to, and then like pulling out my phone because it's the 21st century and being like, I'm gonna just like video record this. And I went to go record it and like zoom in on it, and in the midst of me going to record it, in the video you can hear this like zzz, and a wasp landed on my hand, and then you hear me scream and drop my phone, and, and the entire thing just turning into me remembering that I'm scared of bees.
Is this discoverable online at this point?
It is not online, it's still on my phone.
Okay.
You have to listen very closely for the buzzing, and then all of a sudden just the like tumble.
All right. Well, I hope you post that. I just was doing a quick search here to see why maybe the wasps were in that corpse.
Yeah,
but I don't really
do with dead birds.
I don't see much. Well, there's this nightmare wasps build nests from corpses. I doubt it was a nightmare wasps though. Well, we'll look into this another time. That's weird.
Yeah,
I've never really seen that.
Yeah, where they were just kind of like on this dead bird, and I'm like, what's that about?
Maybe they were thinking about mortality too, and like philosophizing, and they saw you, and they're like, "Don't fucking record us." That's what I'm gonna say is what happened.
Oh my god, yeah. So I was having a philosophical thought, and then I remembered I was scared of bees, and I dropped my phone.
All right, two last things. One, can you give me a short, preferably mundane, but I guess it doesn't have to be, memory that makes you feel warm inside from your life? Could be like a hug you got, or at the right time, or anything, even something very simple like that.
Let's see. Totally mundane thing. I'll have to come back to that. I'm trying to think of like the last, and everything feels mundane and nothing feels mundane right now, because we're in the midst of everything. I mean, here's a pretty mundane one, is like sometimes my dog will come over and just like rest his head on my leg, and I'll just look down at him and he'll look at me, and I'm pretty sure he's trying to like ask for food.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I know when I do this, you cave no matter what. But it's such a tiny thing, and it works so well.
Yep. That's actually a perfect example. I mean, I used to have, when my cat was alive, he'd do the same thing. He would just like look up at me intently. And I've never in my life I've lived with animals, but I never like owned one. And just that overwhelming feeling like I would fucking die for you. Like when he's like looking at me, like I would die for you. All right. And here's the final thing. Can you give me, or us, because a lot of people are going to be watching this, I mean, possibly millions, give us a small piece of life advice. Nothing grand, no big ideas. Like the example I give is, if you owe someone money, immediately write it down so you don't forget. Something that simple.
Yeah. What is a piece of advice? Get a good coat even though they're ugly.
Okay. Like a winter coat, you mean? That's a good one. That's a very, I caved on that actually. I hate those
ones that look like
puffies.
They look like a fucking sleeping bag. They're not cute. They're super ugly, but let me tell you, the warmth and you feel and your ability to be outside when it's cold because of it. as a oh, I can't remember who said it, of like, hey punks, real quick, just so you know, that denim jacket, it's not going to work. You can't put an enamel pin on pneumonia.
Yeah, I still do sometimes. I have a puffy vest and I'll sneak that under a denim jacket. But as
Ooh.
far as, yeah, it works. But when it gets
Yep.
super cold, it ruined me. I got a puffy, like a decent quality, not super expensive, but decent quality. And when you have it on, you're like, oh, this is comfort. Oh, wow. Like, and it ruined me. So I agree with that though.
Yep.
It's totally worth it.
Yep. It just cave, punks. I'm sorry. I know. 7 years
Another
living in
shirt.
snow. I finally did
Just
it.
cave, punks, with a picture of a puffy. We have 2 shirts we have to make now. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for taking all of this time out to talk to me. Where can people find you online if you want them to?
You can find me as Donna Ramone on Instagram. That is probably the only one that I even remotely kind of use.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can go to razorcake.org and you can just read all of it. Don't read my stuff, read everybody's stuff, especially Michael's comics. They're great.
Yeah, I think I have 2 or 3 on there. I can't remember. I got to get back into that. I will submit more. My stuff is the most important stuff on the site. So if you read that, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? Okay. Just
that is concrete and true. And I will say that right to the faces of every other person that submits a webcomic from here on out.
So appreciate that. Well, look, for real, thank you for your time. And I just want to confirm that you did say we would be friends. So everyone to know that.
Yep.
That's it.
Hey, everyone. We're